All right, round two on this video. I got a phone call, so I had to stop. Uh, what shall we talk about? So yesterday I did two videos, and the first one was talking about all the ways that people disappoint me with their soft denial. I understand hardcore denial, right? Global heating is a hoax. Climate change is a hoax. It's all done by it's a hoax, and yet it's also being perpetrated by the Chinese. Okay, it's all over the map. It's just unhinged, right? And I kind of expect that. I don't even really respond to those people, right? If I find that kind of argument in a comment section or something, I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. I guess that's what most people think. It's probably most people, probably at this point. But the ones who don't believe it's a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese uh, think that it's easily solved. And I call this soft denial. Yeah, I mean, you really are denying that it's a problem, that there is a solution, and we just have to negotiate it and find money and spend the money and do it fairly and float all the boats. And there's a solution. We just have to bear down and just get on with it, right? And so the second video, and I made it very clear that I hold these arguments in contempt. I I can almost forgive the hardcore denialists. Maybe they're dumb, right? Maybe they're just they haven't got it up here. It's just empty headed. Or maybe they're cult members, right? Or maybe they're business people, and they're all focused on profits all the time, right? So hard denial, and so I can kind of overlook kind of that, like diminished capacity, right? Not real smart, not real educated, not plugged in, focused on narrow little problems like profitability and getting elected to government or whatever. Okay, diminished capacity. These people probably can't do anything right, not even in their private lives, right? So let's just give them a buy. And then these people come along and say, "Oh, global heating is real, but we can solve it. It's easy, and we just have to throw money at it." And I have a certain level of contempt for that because it's not true. If you're going to accept that global heating is real, and you're going to accept the physics behind global heating, the greenhouse effect, the carbon emissions, the whole chain of events that leads up to global heating, which is real, then you have to accept the physics of everything else. And it includes all of these half-baked solutions, so-called. They violate the laws of physics. They don't comport with the carbon cycle. They're not doable. And the biggest problem with all this stuff, all these so-called solutions, is we have a global problem, and you're going to have to come up with a global solution. And you can't just unilaterally apply your preferred solution to the globe, because there are people who might take exception to that. And even if they're paranoid and delusional and psychotic, and their leaders are completely unhinged, and their way of government is completely criminal, and they should be helping you do this thing that is your personal favorite thing, but they're just going to oppose it. And whatever, what if they got nuclear weapons? Yeah, they're unhinged, they're criminal, they're in denial, but they've got the nuclear weapons. So can you unilaterally do the thing that you think is the thing? Even if you have the money, and even if you have the science to back you up, and even if you have your own people on board, and even if you have your own government on board, and even if everyone is lining up to do this, and even if you have complete agreement internally, can you actually do this on a global scale? Because anything you do is going to happen on a global scale. To solve climate change, to solve global heating, you're going to have to do things on a global scale. It's right there in the title, right? It's right there in the description. And if you think you can do it unilaterally, then you're in denial. And if you think that it's going to be easy, then you're in denial. And if you accept the physics of global heating, and yet you lapse into these fantasies about how it's easy to fix it, we'll just have to do something, and COP29 or COP30 will fix it, then you're in denial. And you can't walk on the same side of the street as me, okay, being data driven, and then be in denial about this other stuff. And I haven't heard anybody out there, not yet. I mean, maybe brief, shallow intimations that what we have to do is leave the fossil fuels in the ground. 5 little words. Leave it in the ground. A handful of words. Leave it in the ground. That's what we have to do. And people won't say that. They're in denial. Pure and simple, they're in denial. The problem is the greenhouse effect. We are enhancing the greenhouse effect. Any enhancement will last hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. And we are doing that by emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere from a thing we do, which is digging up fossil fuels and setting fire to them. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's the entire explanation. There is no other explanation. There is no other problem. That is your problem. And if you don't like that problem, then you're in denial. Ta-da! Welcome to denial. I'm just not going to put up with that. Now, it doesn't matter what I'm going to put up with, but when I get on YouTube and I have to deal with what people are doing and what people are saying and what they're not saying and what they're not doing, then my natural inborn savagery comes out. And I'm a savage. And I say savage things. That's just how I roll. Data-driven physics. Okay? Now, I know, because I'm data-driven, I know what's going to happen when we stop burning fossil fuels. I think about it all the time. I'm writing a short story on it now. It's not even a short story anymore. It's 100 days after the end of fossil fuels, right? 100 days. I'm up to day 18, I think, and it's a lot of pages. It's a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of savagery. Well, yeah, that's it, though. That's what it is. And in my book, in my story that I am writing, that I will read here on YouTube in installments, probably, if you can get through the first one, doubt it, because you're in denial. You know you are. It's about what happens when we have to stop burning fossil fuels. Now, I don't know how we stop burning fossil fuels. I don't have to know, because it's going to happen, and that's all that matters. That's going to happen, and I don't have to know how it happens. It's going to happen because it must happen. It will happen, and therefore we should really be talking about what happens after it happens, right? That should really be the conversation. What do we do after that? Okay, and what I typically say, whenever the topic comes up, yes, after we stop burning fossil fuels, the day after, maybe a couple weeks after, whatever. In my story, it's like days. The day after we stop burning fossil fuels, what you will see in the world, however that happens, however they accomplish it, what you will see in the world is no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, and no jobs. Within a week or two after the end of fossil fuels, however they do that, what is it? Nuclear war, massive pandemic with high lethality, complete breakdown in supply chains, massive disruptions in the Middle East, a corona mass ejection from the sun, global heating. Yeah, global heating could shut us down. Really could. However it's done, the day after, what the world will look like is no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, and no jobs. The day after, or the week after. I don't have to be real specific. Day, week, month, it kind of doesn't matter, right? You're going to be caught flat-footed. I'm going to be caught flat-footed. It happened. Now what? Oh, well, we don't even get a chance to discuss it. Now we're in the middle of it, okay? It's like the Titanic hitting the iceberg. They barely had time to get the people off into the few, little rowboats that they could muster to the task. Most people didn't get off at all. And that we'll be in that position. We'll hit the iceberg and then we go down. It's like, oh, well, that didn't take long, did it? It doesn't matter if it takes 3 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours. It's too fast. It should never have happened. Oh, but it did. So now here we are. We're sinking. Now what? So I don't know how they shut off the fossil fuels, but that's what they're going to do. And if that's a problem, well, then we should be talking about the problem. And the problem in its simplest summary is that On the day after, you will see a world where there is no or very limited driving, flying, movement of goods, movement of money, and jobs. Day, week, maybe a month after. Just bang, blows up. That's what'll happen. And you say, "Oh, well, you're saying it like it's a good thing." No, I'm saying it like it's a thing. It's not a good thing. I suppose for a lot of people, it would be a bad thing. It might be a bad thing for me. I'm embedded in the system the same as everybody else, but it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's a thing. It's a thing. You hit the iceberg. Oh, but I have a first class ticket. Doesn't matter. Oh, but I have to get to New York in time for my appointment. It doesn't matter. Oh, but my family, if I'm late, I won't be able to get to the wedding, and it doesn't matter. I'll disappoint people if I don't arrive in New York on time. It doesn't matter. You've hit the iceberg. You're going down. You're not going to New York. Maybe you'll get there in a month, but you're not going to New York, not on this boat. You're sinking now. And when we hit the iceberg called the end of fossil fuels, we go down. And it doesn't matter what you think about it. It doesn't matter if it's good for somebody, bad for somebody, or bad for everybody, and no good for anybody. It doesn't matter. You're going down. No driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, and no jobs on day one or day three. Your entire global economy implodes. All supply chains break, all of them. Every supply chain breaks. Well, with the exception of the supply chains in your neighborhood. If you have tomato plants in your backyard, then you have a supply chain of tomatoes that extends to your backyard. Okay, that supply chain probably is okay. Probably, I can make a case for that supply chain being okay-ish. But water deliveries to your home, electricity deliveries to your home, not as okay. Maybe for a while. But eventually, yeah, all supply chains break. Everything that is not in your backyard, growing in your bed, is too far away, too distant. Too many people have to get in the way to make that thing happen for you and be in the supply chain, the links, all the links. Okay. Yes. On the day after they stop burning fossil fuels, everything breaks. And this Titanic sinks within 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, doesn't matter. It's going to sink. And there's not enough lifeboats for everybody. And we already know that. You can count the lifeboats, you can count the people on the boat. Well, someone's going to go down with the ship. And the ship is going down. And we can't stop it. And it might take 2 hours, it might take 3, but we're not going to make any more lifeboats in 2 or 3 hours. So if you don't get on a lifeboat, you're going down with the ship. And we can actually draw lots and see who gets to go down with the ship. We could do that. And in the case of fossil fuels, we could do that. We could say, we're going to have a controlled demolition. And, I don't want to think about the prospects of people drawing straws to see who has to go down with the ship, whatever that means. But what about technologies? What about communities? What about whole nations? How are we gonna figure this out? So maybe we don't do it. Maybe we don't have a controlled demolition, a planned demolition. And right now, we're not doing that. We're not having these conversations. We're pretending the technology or unicorn farts or a miracle from God or something is going to save us. And it won't, because those things are all make-believe. So we're going to have a demolition, and we're not talking about how that works or how to save as many as possible or how to save as much technology as possible or how to maintain certain critical industries like, I don't know, modern agriculture. So we're going to have an uncontrolled demolition. That's what we're going to have. We're going to have an uncontrolled demolition because we're in denial. Yeah, you see how this works? You see why I'm savage about this? Yeah, we're in denial. It's going to be technology. It's going to be nuclear energy. It's going to be alternative energy. We're going to have what's the term? We're going to plant trees. We're going to have renewable agriculture, renewable energy. We're going to replenish our soils. We're going to replenish the wetlands. We're going to plant trees. We're going to restore the forests. All blah 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 blah. And no, you're not going to do any of those things. I mean, you may want to do some of those things. Plant a tree. Go ahead, be my guest. You're not going to solve the problem. If you feel good about yourself, great. And plus, maybe in 20, 30 years, somebody who comes after you, some random stranger that you've never met, will be able to sit under that tree, not you, because you're going to be too busy surviving. And can you stay in your home to enjoy your tree? Not so sure. And if you're a rich person and you plant a tree in your rich manor backyard, you may find out that you can't stay in that location. You have to go eventually and go live on your private island or your private cruise ship or your private, you know, getaway bug out hole up in the Alps or whatever it is you think you have to do. So you plant the tree and then you never get to see it mature. So go ahead and plant trees if you want to. Fine, fine. And in one of my earlier videos yesterday, I described how that's just not a thing. Go ahead and do it, but you're still going to have to implode your global economy. You're just going to have to do that. Now, I said that I don't know how they're going to implode the global economy or who they are. They could do it deliberately, by the way. How much more money do the oil companies really need? How much more money do the oil exporting nations really need? Maybe they have enough money. Maybe at some point they become concerned about the planet. I got all this money, but I got nowhere to live because Elon Musk hasn't created me a mansion on Mars, and I don't want to live on the moon. It doesn't look like a very nice place. And we have to shut off the fossil fuels so that I can live on this planet, planet A. Okay. I got planet A and there is no planet B. So I want to live on this planet and I don't want it to be so hot outside that I have to wear a spacesuit to go outside. I'd like to live on this planet. It can be a little bit warmer. It can be a little bit rainier. It can be a little bit terrible, but but this is my planet. I have to be able to live here. And I can work with my colleagues in the fossil fuel industry to shut this off. They could do that. They could do that. They could do that. Would they do that? I don't know. Are they insane? If they're insane, then I guess they don't do it. They just do like what we think capitalists are going to do, which is just sell the fuels. Get the best price you can. Drill up every barrel. Sell it to all the rubes. Make sure those people can get their Starbucks latte. Sell. They might be insane. It could be. I'm pretty sure there are some American businessmen who are absolutely barking mad, barking insane, and would do that. But are there entire nations of insane people? I mean, you could get rid of a businessman if he says, my company is never going to shut down fossil fuels. I like having the green. I like having the power. I like buying Congress people. And I like doing whatever I want with money. Power. Okay, well, you could just get rid of that guy. He's a guy. He's a person. He's not a country. He's not even an industry. He's just a guy. So get rid of him. Sir, we don't need to hear you anymore. We know what you want. Fine. Leave the room. Now the rest of us are going to have the conversation. Okay. And they could stop it. And then you get a demolition. And when you get a demolition, then you are demolished. And after that process starts, the pins that are going to fall are, no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, and no jobs. And it just all crumbles. And that's the savage truth. You don't like it? Tough. That's how it works. Now, they could do it deliberately. Will they do it deliberately? Only if they're sane. Are they sane? Oh, you tell me. I guess we'll find out. If they don't do it, if they don't shut off the fossil fuels and do it deliberately, then I guess they're just as crazy as the rest of us. But you see, it doesn't matter. They don't have to do it. It can be done anyway. It can be done stochastically. I talked last time about stochastic terrorism, the lone gunman who loses his mind and grabs up his weapons and goes out and, he's going to go make the world safe for whatever he thinks the problems are. And he shoots all these people and that's stochastic terrorism. So we could have stochastic terrorism. Things just start blowing up. No planning whatsoever. No warning, no nothing. It just blows up. And, that could be Iran attacking Saudi Arabia attacking Iran. That could be, a collapse of shipping a la what we're seeing right now in the Red Sea. You just be a bunch of random things all happening at once, all happening in sequence, just the right sequence that it all goes down. It all goes down. Who knew? Who thought? Who would have ever believed? And yet, wow, it's gone. It all went down. Completely random. Enough random events, which, oh, by the way, are all happening right now. Read the news. A bunch of random events that don't seem connected, that probably aren't connected. Just people acting on their impulses, and you get enough of them strung together at just the right time or just the right timing, and bam, it's gone. Your global supply chains are gone. Wow. Didn't see that one coming. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you saw it coming. It happened. And the day after it happened, no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, and no jobs. Like within a week. Or you don't need stochastic terrorism. You don't need stochastic destruction of the supply chains. You don't need a series of random events. You could have just one pivotal event. So I don't much like Donald Trump. I don't think he's a good person. I think he lies. I think he's paranoid. I think he's probably half nuts with narcissism. I'm not the only one who thinks that. People look at the guy and say, "What's up with this guy?" The Russians love him, so I mean, automatically, what do I feel about him? If the Russians love him, he's probably not a good thing. And the GOP, his party, that he's got them in tow. He's got the rope around their neck, and they're coming along like lapdogs, and so that's going to be a problem, right? So what if he gets to be the 47th president of the United States? No, there's a good chance of that, right? How do I feel about that? Oh man, that sucks. Well, now you see, I can say, man, that sucks. We got to stop that from happening. But you see how this is. I'm a savage. I have to remind myself that you are devoted to absolute clarity. That's what you are. I look at myself in the mirror and say, you savage, you low down, truth bomb dropping savage. What do you really think about this? 47th president of the United States. He's already told us what he's going to do. Sounds sick to me. But on the other hand, I only really have one problem, you see, and that's global heating, physics. And all the mamby-pamby diplomats and scientists and they're out there saying, well, we can solve this, denial that. And I'm not really impressed. And I keep thinking, we're not going to get a controlled demolition. These people aren't going to do it. They're in denial. They think they got a handle on this. They clearly don't. And they're not even talking about what the real problems are. The real problems are physics, my dear. And you're not even talking about the physics of your actual wicked problem. You should start with the physics. I mean, really, you should. You shouldn't start with the economics or the injustice or the end. You just start with the physics. Okay, let's just start with what is really happening. And what's really happening? All right, do I have to really go through this again? We're digging up the fossil fuels. We're setting them on fire. The CO2 enhances the greenhouse effect, and it's heating the planet. That's it. That's your problem. That's your whole problem. And it's a wicked problem because you have to keep doing that. And nobody wants to stop doing that. And that's why they haven't. And that's why they're not even talking about it. And that's also why they don't talk about the physics. The scientists know the physics. Even they won't talk about it. I'll talk about it because I'm a savage. You see, that's how this happens. That's why I'm here. That's why I say the things I say. So, 47th president. I don't like it. But on the other hand, when I put on my savage hat, is there really a problem here? Is there really a problem here? Because look what happens. Donald Trump and the GOP do what they say they're going to do. Let's just assume they're saying it. I'll just assume it's true. Let's assume that on day one, they do what they say they're going to do. They pull out of NATO. They throw Ukraine under the bus. They go around communities knocking on doors. Okay, this is brown shirt stuff, right? This is fascist Germany 1933 knocking on doors. All right. That sounds over the top. You took it from a savage, okay? They're going to go and they're going to find the people who don't have the documents, or maybe do have the documents, but they don't trust the documents, and and there's not enough documentation. And they show me your papers, knocking on the door. Show me your peepaws. You know, and they got their swastika on and their military hat and their brown shirt and their black shiny boots, and they're polishing their boots 15 times a day. And they show me your peepaws. And they don't have the papers, or they can't find them quick enough. And so they deport those people. And then they close the border, and the army with the guns and the cannons at the border. You know, you don't ever come back in, and everybody that looks like you are going to join you on that side of the fence. And that's how they do it, because that's what they say they're going to do. So let's assume they do that. Door to door, hauling people out, putting them on buses, hauling them to the border, shoving them across the border. There you go. That's where you belong. And here's a gun if you think you're going to come back. Say they do that. And therefore, since this is like the military working internally in the country now, because it would be the military, right? They're not going to let Joe Schmo redneck with his shotgun go door to door. These are going to be deputized people, military. They're going to be retired service people come back back into service. They're going to be deployed. They're going to have uniforms. They're going to have badges. They're going to have an armband, and they're going to go door to door, and they're going to do all this stuff. Therefore, because that's actually against the law, they're going to have to suspend the Constitution. And they pull out of NATO and they throw Ukraine under the bus. And pretty soon, Vladimir Putin says, okay, now we have an ally. And so, Vladimir Putin rolls into Poland and Estonia and Latvia and Romania. And, he's brandishing his nuclear weapons, polishing those. and I got nuclear weapons for you, and I got nuclear weapons for you, and the U.S. has withdrawn from NATO, and they're taking all their toys home. They took their soldiers and they took their nuclear weapons, and now I'm here knocking on your border, and you're letting me in, because if you don't, I've got 1,500 tactical nukes all lined up. They're all warmed up. They're sitting there in the launchers, and the people got their finger over the button, right over the button. Button. I'm going to push the button. Give me an excuse, boss, so I can push this button. That's what he's going to say. He's going to have videos of soldiers with their finger like this over the button. Please, let me do this. I want to do this. And the Europeans are going to roll over. Not just that. And this whole thing, China invades Taiwan, and North Korea invades South Korea. And then North Korea drops nukes on Japan. And then China takes over the Philippines, and they roll into India, and India has nukes, and India nukes China, and Pakistan nukes China. Blah, 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 blah. And the day after all this happens, day one, as I call it in my story, that's called foreshadowing. On day one, what do you see? No driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, and no jobs. Well, la-dee-da. What just happened? What just happened? Well, without driving and flying and movement of goods and movement of money and jobs, if all those things gone, what use do you have of fossil fuels? Well, we're going to have fossil fuels. Oh, yeah, your military, your brown shirts, your Gestapo marching up and down the street polishing their boots. They're going to need fossil fuels, and maybe they'll have all the fossil fuels they need. Or maybe to actually control them so they don't get any fancy ideas of their own. You don't let them have fossil fuels. And you put a lock on the gate of fossil fuels, and nobody gets fossil fuels unless they're, have sworn an oath, and a blood oath, and, they're wearing the armband and they're swearing an oath, and then they get fossil fuels. Well, that's like what, 1% of the people that used to have fossil fuels to go to Starbucks? It ends up being 1% of the people end up getting fossil fuels because they've sworn the oath and they're wearing the armband, and they give the salute and the whole thing, and they get the fossil fuels, and everybody else suffers, right? Because if you don't make them suffer, they won't be angry at the immigrants, and they won't be angry at the brown people, and they won't be angry at the commies, and they won't be angry at the socialists, and they won't be angry at their neighbors. They won't be angry, and they'll be angry at you because you destroyed the world. So to keep them, to keep them feeling uncertain, you have to deprive them of the thing they need so you can dole it out, right? Dole it out. You're not going to be able to rise up against me because I'm doling out the very thing you would need to rise up against me. So, 47th president of the United States. Okay. I don't like the guy. But how do I really feel about that? I got one problem that I can't seem to solve. I've got one problem where everybody on the planet would have to agree, and they're not doing that. I've got one problem where everyone's in denial, and they're all trotting out their little trick pony about what the thing that's going to solve the thing, and it's not. None of it's true because of physics. And I got a problem that is a wicked problem, and it can't be solved. It has no solution. And no one wants a controlled demolition around this wicked problem. They're just completely in denial about everything. They're in denial about everything about the everything. And it's all rose-colored glasses and tricks and ponies and God will miracle and raptures, and they're just got their head up their ass. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I guess we're not going to solve this problem. We're going to get whatever we get. And then, wow, 47th president. Well, that was quick. Wait, look what's happening. Look what's happening. And a day later, wow, there's no cars on the streets. I wonder how that happened. Yeah, some guy in a brown shirt came to my door, but look at me. Is this going to be a problem? Do I have to swear an oath to the the God Emperor? Okay, fine, I'll do that. What words do I have to say? Hold it to me so I can read it. Yeah, okay. I just read it. Yeah, go about your business, sir. And best of luck. Okay, well, I'm done then, right? I'm done. The whole thing sweeps over me and I'm done. Easy. And then I look around and there's no one working the fields. And there's no one preparing the food in the restaurants. And there's no one cleaning the rooms at the hotels. And there's no one loading luggage into the airplanes. And there's no one who used to run the country anywhere to be found because they all had the wrong color skin and they didn't have their papers, and they just got loaded up in buses and sent to the other side of the fence, and it all comes crashing down. And how am I supposed to feel about that? An uncontrolled demolition. Well, that solves my problem, doesn't it? That solves my problem. Wait a second. Did that just solve my problem? I got one problem, which is global heating, which is caused by excessive enhancing the greenhouse effect, which is enhanced by CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, which happens when people burn fossil fuels that they dug out of the ground. That's my problem. That's my chain that leads to the problem that I have, and it's a wicked problem, and no one wants to solve it. And they're all lying to themselves. They're all in denial. They're not lying to me. I know what's going on. They're not going to do this. They are not going to lift a finger to do this. They're just going to let it go down the way it's going to go down, however that is. And they're going to make money while it's going down. And they'll get their lifeboat and they'll get off the Titanic. A bunch of people will sink, but dead people tell no tales, right? So this is how it's going to be. And then 47th president. But that was unexpected, except actually from where I'm sitting right now on this particular date, Friday, January 19th, 2024, it's really not expected. He's expected to win. He's expected to win. So it's not unexpected. It's anticipated. And so here I am, and I'm thinking, yeah, it kind of sucks. It would be kind of bad. But wait, hold on. It would destroy the human world, won't it? If they just do what they say they're going to do, and they deport all the people, and they get out of NATO, and Russia overruns Europe, and China attacks Taiwan, and North Korea attacks South Korea, and then nukes Japan. And these are all major economies, and these are all major supply chains, and they're all consuming huge amounts of fossil fuels and enabling other people to consume huge amounts of fossil fuels. And when there's no more cars coming out of South Korea and Japan and any place else that make cars, and all those factories are blown up, and the car thing stops, and all the spare parts stop, and then there's no, then there'll be fewer cars on the road, right? Eventually, at some point, and then there's no fossil fuels anyway. And so these economies are destroyed by not maintaining the status quo. And the status quo, of course, is itself a problem because the status quo wants more fossil fuel consumption because business as usual is business. But we have all these demagogues who are not interested in your business as usual. They're interested in power, 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 power. Give it to me. Give me all of it. I want to be the God Emperor of the world. They all want to be the God Emperor of the world. Putin and Z and Trump, and now a whole bunch of others. The Ayatollah of Iran. All these people now have a feeling that the systems are falling apart, and they can jump into the slot, grab the golden ring, and become God Emperor of the world. I've got the ring. Call me Sauron, okay? I've got the ring. It's mine now. God Emperor. And they're all thinking the same thing because they're all insane. But on the other hand, if they blow up the world, how do I feel about that as a savage? How do I feel about that? They just blew up the world. They're going to blow up the world. It's coming. 47th president, it's coming. If he does all the things he says he's going to do, he's going to blow up the world. Wow, that's okay. That's okay. Because the day after all of them together, blow up the world, and if it takes them a month or it takes them 100 days, whatever it takes, after they blow up the world and after they end business as usual, after they end business, and it all comes crashing down because of all the problems, all the interlinked supply chains, and all the things that they have carefully crafted for 300 years, when all of that comes crashing down, and all those people get to be God Emperor of the world, and subsequently go after each other, right? Because that's how it's going to be, all right? They don't stop when they are God Emperor of their little piece of the crust of the earth. They're going to want to be God Emperor of everything, and they're going to find faults everywhere they look, and they are going to go after each other with nuclear weapons, and so it all just comes crashing down. And how am I supposed to feel about that? How are you supposed to feel about that? You're not going to have time to create all of your micro nuclear reactors and deploy them into all the places, all of the earth, all 1 million of them. You're not going to have time to plant all the billions and trillions of trees you were saying we were going to plant, and you're not going to have time to plant to save all the wetlands and restore all the arable land, and you're not going to have a chance to put all the solar panels on all the houses. It's just going to all come crashing down, and all your denial didn't do you any good. Except that, and all the denial about what our problem was and what our solutions might be, which is zero, the big zero. Okay, there are no solutions because it's a wicked problem by definition, no solution. And so nobody was ready. Nobody could save the world. Nobody could save business as usual. They just kept going on and going on and going on until the day after. There's no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, and no jobs. And that's it. And the fossil fuel consumption falls through the floor. And we call that an uncontrolled demolition. And that is a demolition. It fits the definition of what we kind of have to do. We could have done a controlled demolition, but we didn't want to because reasons. And now we get an uncontrolled demolition. It's coming. It's coming. And how am I supposed to feel about that? Well, uncontrolled demolition, that is a demolition. That does save us from our propensity to consume fossil fuels and enhance the greenhouse effect and warm the planet. That does kind of work. An uncontrolled demolition sounds terrible. I'm not signing up for that, but it does work. It does do the job that all the diplomats and the scientists and the engineers and the negotiators couldn't do, wouldn't do, refused to do. And so, but this would do it. An uncontrolled demolition caused by politics, starting in the US. That would do it. Blow everything up. Wow. How do I feel about that? Oh, that's right. I'm a savage, aren't I? I have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with that. Damn. Wasn't ready for that. But okay. All right. Look myself in the mirror. Do you have a problem with that? Because you have one problem. You have one problem. And maybe you'd like to maintain democracy in the world. And maybe you'd like to, have a problem-free retirement. And maybe you'd like to have more trees and have more children and have more wonderful things. Maybe you'd like to have those things, but you do have a problem and you cannot solve it. And nobody can solve it. And nobody's going to solve it. And when they don't solve it, you won't have nice things anymore. And yet, that might solve it. Let it be, I guess. Right? Bring it. Just bring it. That's me being accepting of reality. We're not solving this problem. This problem will be solved. This will end. It will end one way or another. And I can't have any previous ideas about how it can be solved because I can't influence that. There are things I cannot do, but I can't make anyone else do the right thing. So yeah, I'm writing a story about this. Uh, I've done videos recently about village life, and village life is what you get after the poop hits the fan. Okay, that village life is what you get. How do you get it? Read my story. Actually, I'll save you the trouble of reading it. I'm going to read it right here on YouTube, right here. I'm going to read it, and it's called "It's Been 100 Days," and it's about the process of people in a neighborhood going through 100 days of pretty much what I just described. It doesn't mention politics of any kind. It doesn't have to, right? Because frankly, it's irrelevant. Even if we voluntarily shut down fossil fuels, it doesn't change the story at all. It doesn't change any part of it because no part of this story involves politics. Doesn't need to, and it doesn't. I don't know how the fossil fuels stop. I can hypothesize just based on what's in the news headlines today. Okay, I can hypothesize about how that happens, but it doesn't matter. And the story doesn't dwell on it. And the story is just parenthetical. Well, there may have been a nuclear exchange. We don't really know. The supply chains were broken. The Saudi royal family is in hiding. There's riots everywhere. People can't find food or fuel, and cities are burning. And it's just, or they're not burning. People are just hunkering down, but they're not going to work, and they're not driving and flying, and the other things. Okay, and it's just falling apart. And we hit the iceberg, and now we're sinking. And now what do we do? And that whole part takes 10 paragraphs. Because that's not the interesting part. But the interesting part is, what do we do? And I think what we do, at least in the interim, at least in the first 40 or 50 years, we embrace village life. Where your supply chains extend as far as your backyard. And, because people can't do the necessary things singly, then they have to pool their resources and work collectively. Oh my God, collectively, that sounds like communism. Well, it kind of is, but it is with a small c. It's not an ism at all. It's just collective life, village life, if you prefer, or hamlet life, or something along those lines. And they just, people naturally do that. They naturally come together when there's a disaster, and, they support each other and try and pool their resources. And they know that their chances of survival are better if they work together than if they try and tough it out alone. You have fewer enemies if you're working together. And people that are maybe potential enemies see you working together, see you cooperating and mounting a coordinated defense, and they go find someone else who's not so together. And so togetherness and sharing and pulling your resources and pulling together and working together eventually forms a village. That's what we call it. Forms a village. That's our word for it. Okay. And village life emerges. And village life emerges spontaneously from people naturally doing what they know they need to do in order to not die today. You get village life. And has no real leadership. It's just a tacit understanding that we have to do certain things. And since our supply chains are really, really short, like each other's backyard, then that's where our food's going to come from. That's where our children are going to grow up. That's where our teaching was going to happen. That's where our healthcare has to be centered. That's where our manufacturing has to be centered, if we can have any. Village life. And if you were to study villages and older times before fossil fuels, and it doesn't matter where they are, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, England, China, Japan, Korea, Australia, even, if you study village life, you kind of see the same thing because people are geared towards a certain type of behavior in groups doing certain things, and those things are a constant, pretty much. And we like to say food, clothing, and shelter. Okay, we'll all work on that first, but then you get to trade, and you get to cultural growth and cultural attainment. You get to religion, spiritual expression of some kind, and you get to shared mythologies. And you go from there. You rebuild all the things, and pretty soon you've got temples, and you've got marketplaces, and you've got roads that connect all the different places, and you've got all the things, that we gave up on because of fossil fuels. Then when the fossil fuels are gone, we're going to have to do all the things. God's big. We just don't want to go extinct, so we do all the things that we always did. If we opted for a controlled demolition, we said, okay, this sucks. We're going to have to do something. Physics says that we have hit the iceberg. Our Titanic has hit that iceberg, and physics says we're going down. So let's not all go down with the ship. That's a thought. That's a start. Let's start with that. Let's start with not everybody dying. Let's start with that. Okay, we can have a controlled demolition. Or we could do what we're probably going to do, which is an uncontrolled demolition. And what do you get out of an uncontrolled demolition? Well, number one, you might not get much of anything, especially if we opt for, defending BAU with nuclear weapons. Then, yeah, you get a lot less than if you had simply said, okay, we're going to give up on business as usual, and we're going to live a different life. And we're going to start with hyper-local agriculture and hyper-local industries and hyper-local living and communal living and getting to know your neighbors and living collectively, more people per house and that kind of thing. And that's how we're going to do this. And then we're going to try to maintain as much technology and services as we can. So universal basic services maintained by the state, because the states can do things like that. And so we could have some kind of combination of going forward with village life, more compressed, more local. Meanwhile, the states are still providing for critical services like large state-run farms and large state-operated transportation networks and some other things, huge solar farms, huge wind farms, things that are somewhat renewable, okay, and don't involve fossil fuels, because that you lost all that, okay? How do you build solar panels without fossil fuels? I don't know. Maybe you should answer that question. Maybe if we don't have that capacity, could be we have to invent that capacity. Do we have time to invent that capacity? Only if we do a controlled demolition. Are we doing a controlled demolition? We are not. Therefore, we won't be able to produce solar panels in the future. And we kind of chose that by not choosing. We chose that path by not choosing. And, we have now, I think, about a year in which to try, with all the craziness, insanity, and unhinged behavior around us. Nevertheless, as individuals and communities, we need to try to start to recreate village life. We have to prepare for a massive collapse of the global supply chains. That's our job now. I'm telling you that. Now, you may say that doesn't sound very savage. That doesn't sound like a savage, because you think a savage is, this steely-eyed survivalist prepper who's got his, all his guns and all his bullets, and he's going to be out there, defending his truck and all this, his dog, and, wrapping himself in the American flag. No, that's not a savage. That's someone who's given up. That person isn't out to fix anything. That person isn't even out to survive. They've just completely given up. They've surrendered to madness. Yeah, you want to talk to a real savage? That's me. I'm going about this in the most savage way possible. I am looking at every truth in the eye with steely determination. I know what's happening. I know what's going to happen. Physics, human behavior, that's what's going to happen. And I don't see anybody else trying to stop any of that. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They haven't done it, and they're not making any moves towards doing it. They're not talking about doing it, and they're not going to do it. We're not going to have a controlled demolition. Fact. And then the 47th president. Really? Really? Maybe it doesn't matter if they don't do it. It's going to get done. It's going to get done. And because I have one problem, because I can't find a solution to that one problem, I have to go at it as a savage. Bring it. That's what you're going to do. That's what you're promising to do. Good. Do it. Bring it. I'm not going to like it. It's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be embarrassing and humiliating. So what? It accomplishes what I need to see accomplished.